impact. And I said, I'm going to raise £10 million for 10 ideas that will change the world in the next 10 years, because I said I would.
Power to Live More with Jo Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello. My name is Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Jo's interviewing Danielle Macleod of Remarkable Women. Danielle and Jo met when Danielle came to speak at an Engage for Success task force meeting, in turn because Kathy Brown, our guest on show number 1, had seen her speaking brilliantly at another event. They connected, and when Jo was in Scotland on holiday last year, they met for coffee, as you do. Danielle gave up her big corporate career leading 10,000 people 2 years ago to set up a business with the brilliant Nick Devlin that would allow women to dial up their impact and live a life they love. So much has changed since then, but they've never moved from their original mantra, "What if this was easy?" which forms the basis of every decision they make. Danielle published her first book, Remarkably Easy, in December last year, and is already midway through her second book, Remarkable You. She fervently believes in the power of heart-centered leadership and that pretty much anything is possible when we learn to get out of our own way. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Danielle Macleod of Remarkable Women. I'm really excited to be interviewing Danielle. I don't always get to meet my guests, but I met Danielle a little while ago, and we've been in touch ever since. So really pleased to get you on here, Danielle. And I think we've been waiting months actually for this, haven't we?
We have, yeah. Diary's trying to match. I'm so chuffed to be here. I'm really delighted.
Excellent. So start by telling us who you are, what you do, and crucially, where you do it.
I run an organisation called Remarkable Women, and that's an evolution of a business we've been running for about 2.5 years now. We've just rebranded as Remarkable Women, and our intention is to create more and more women in the world who are making the difference they really long to make. Our experience in having been doing this work for kind of the last 2.5 years is that women really, really want to make a difference. They have such a heart for the world, and they don't tend to get started on the big things they dream of because they think it comes at too high a price. So either the cost of health or the cost of relationships, or maybe I can't earn enough money doing this stuff that I really want to do. And so we're really working with women to create the things they most want to create and a life of impact and joy. And so we call all of our women remarkable because they're all off on big missions. We help them to develop and create that. It's just brilliant work. And where do we do that? All over the world, actually. I mean, it's the beauty of the internet, right? Is you can work with people from all over the place. So people in America, mainly Scotland, that's where I live, but also London. We've got some people in Australia, in Singapore. It's such a joy, actually, to have access to people from all over the world now. Some in India. Yeah, actually one in Swaziland at the moment.
Wow.
I think everywhere. Yeah, it's great.
That is cool. And you work from home?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things about having your own business is I've had my own business before, and it didn't go so well. We lost a lot of money. It was a long time ago, and you got to learn to be smart about how you use your resource. And actually, with the power of technology and the things we can do now, it's a joy for me to work from home. I work in Edinburgh. I face the River Forth from the place where I work, so I couldn't have a better spot. I mean, you couldn't get an office as nice as where I work. So I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm looking at the English Channel, so we're looking at our own pieces of water. So firstly, I have to congratulate you on the fact that you pronounce women properly. Thank you.
There are so many people out there who have
who either work with women or have women in their business title who say woman, and it's one of the things that really causes me some trauma.
You go. I'm so glad that I came and did it properly.
And I knew you would, but I just thought, what happens if she rocks up and says her new business name is Remarkable Woman and it's really women? It'll really annoy me.
We should talk about scones and scones then and see where we go with that one.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. So tell us a bit more about why you do what you do, because you haven't always done this. You've said already you've had a business in the past, but you've had a really big corporate job in the meantime as well. Why are you now doing this, and why is it this?
And I think people think that's bonkers when they know what I did before. So most latterly, corporately, I was director of customer service for a very well-known British company, and I led 10,000 people. So to move from that into a world where I'm teaching kind of leadership, I mean, I also teach corporate leadership as well, but I'm pretty unconventional in that space. So corporates who bring me in are bold and brave, which I love. Why did I change? Because there were two things for me. On a personal level, I wanted to have more impact, which sounds insane, right? So people go, what do you mean you wanted to have more impact? You were leading 10,000 people. There's something really exciting for me about being able to speak exactly my truth without having to represent a brand. And I represented a very well-known brand, very well-known. And so I wanted to be able to speak in the world without having to worry about that. Because sometimes what I have to say is a bit controversial. And I wanted to make a bigger difference than I felt I could make in that environment. I've always, this will sound ridiculous, but I've always kind of had this thing since I was a child that I'm supposed to change the world. And actually people who come and work with us pretty much feel the same way. So I know I'm not alone in that madness. And what I was doing there was really fulfilling, and my main work really was to have people. I led call centers, 10,000 people in call centers in 15 different locations. And my main work was to help them feel really significant and to love their work, which is pretty challenging if you're working in a call center, right? And I wanted to do even more than that. And so I made the decision to come out of corporate, which was a little bit funny because the organization I worked for had set up this massive women in leadership program. And I was one of literally a poster girl. So they had these life-size posters of me. Some were in toilets. I mean, it was a bit bonkers. Luckily, I was looking off to the right, so it was fine. It's very freaky seeing yourself on a toilet door. And I was like a poster girl when I didn't really have a thing about women in leadership. But I thought I can't represent the organization at this level. I was on YouTube videos, the whole thing, speaking at events, if I don't believe in it. So I spent a lot of time kind of diving into gender inequality. And then after that, all the other issues that come with inclusion. And I realized it was really a big thing. And so they kind of created Frankenstein's monster, because I spent my last year there mentoring probably 12 women. And then I was like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to do this? Not in corporate. So I swore I'd never have another business. I swore I would never have another business. And then I did. So these things happen, right?
Exactly. And here we are. And so you started a business with somebody else as well, which, it's not as common. Lots of people like us working from home, helping people, all that sort of stuff, do it individually. Why did you do it with somebody else?
That is such a great question. And I think people sort of have a little envy really about our relationship together. Why did I do it with somebody else? Well, we've been good friends for a long time. She'd actually coached me out of a really difficult period in my life. And actually what happened, it wasn't deliberate. One, I wasn't planning to have my own business. I'd resigned and I was going to have a year off. And we'd gone to a big event in London as friends. And on the way back, she said, I'm really missing, she had her own coaching business. I'm really missing being on stage. I don't do it anymore. And so I said, well, I've been invited to speak at this women's event at the Scotsman in Edinburgh in 2 weeks' time. Why don't you come and do it with me? And she said, don't be ridiculous. They've asked you because of who you are. And I said, but they said I could talk about whatever I want so long as I inspire the women. So let's do it together. She didn't think I meant it, but I rang her then on the Monday and said, "Oh, we're all booked." And,
Brilliant.
we then took the stage to tell our story about how we'd come together as friends, actually, and the power of women in connection with each other. And it was amazing. It was a corporate event, and women were crying, and people were coming up to us at the end saying, "Well, how can we sign up?" And we were like, "Sign up to what? We're not a thing." And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, we became a thing. And yeah, and so that kind of sparked it. And what I would say, I think for me personally, being in partnership with somebody is absolutely glorious. But you got to know it's a relationship where you can really, there's a lot of permission to stretch and challenge each other.
Yeah.
So I think people see us, I mean, we are like non-biological sisters for sure, but I think people see us on the surface and go, "Oh my God, the chemistry between those two is incredible." It is incredible. And it's incredible because we really speak our truth to each other. So certainly when we're in design work, for example, that can be pretty edgy, because we really push the boundaries. So it's a glorious relationship, and we're totally yin and yang. So even to the point where I'm brunette, she's blonde. I have a black dog, she has a white dog. She's a meditation monk. I'm the most active action person you'll ever meet in your life. So I think what women get, and men, when they work with us is this beautiful blend of being and doing. And I think that's such a gift to the world that I can't imagine not doing work with her. And we both do work on our own. There's but it's all under the banner of the same organization.
So that all sounds really positive. What are the challenges? Where have you found it difficult? Where have you had to work hard
in partnership or just in business?
In partnership.
In partnership. Well, right at the beginning, this is genius, and I'm so grateful we did it. Our accountant said to us, "You must create a separation agreement." So we've got like a prenup.
Yeah, cool.
And oh my word, that was so difficult to do. I mean, you literally felt like you were planning to really break up one of the most momentous friendships of your life. And we sat in that for like a day working through it. So we did that very early on. So I reckon once you've done that, you can probably get through anything. I guess what gets challenging, well, sometimes I want to go at 1,000,000 miles an hour and Nick really wants to slow things down. And sometimes, and there's such a gift in that. And she's, one of Nick's real gifts is to bring kind of beauty and delight to everything that we do, whereas I'll be like, "It's good enough." And so there can be tensions all the time in the very fact that we're very different. So we're really aligned in our thinking, and we do things in different ways, and we know to embrace that. And but that doesn't mean we don't have to have sticky conversations to get to the other side. We can have, I mean, design meetings generally for us, we've just done one today which was great, but actually often they can be quite painful, and we know it now. We have to go, right, this is gonna be a tough day, let's just get to the other side and give each other a big hug. Yeah, because what comes out is magic. And also we have very different ways of how would I describe it, just living our lives. Like we both subscribe to kind of morning rituals and how do we look after ourselves. We have a very strong teaching thing about protecting the asset, as in ourselves, and yet we do live quite different lives. So just making the right amount of time to be with eeach other, we're pretty good at that, and we have to really honor it. So it is glorious. I mean, and simple challenges around when there are two of you doing something, you also have to charge twice the price. So that affects your pricing models. And so if people want both Nick and I at an event, it's a much more significant cost than having one of us. And yet people who do it know that they get this glorious blend of yin and yang. And I think even if you take the fact that Nick's a meditation monk and I'm not, but we're both, we really do a lot of work. We have a whole section of all the work we do is called choice, and it's about mastering the mind. And what's so beautiful is she takes it from one angle and I take it from another. So we have more than one way of teaching the same thing. And I actually think that's really important. You'll know from the work that you do, some people get it when it's explained one way, and then you explain it another way and they get it somebody else gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a real benefit of Nick and I coming at things from very different perspectives, but being quite congruent in what we want the outcome to be, you know. So it's glorious and challenging, and I think I drive her mad more than she does me, because I ring her up and go, I've had this idea, and she's like, oh sweet Lord, what is it now? And then she's like, I have to brace myself, especially if I go away and do like some intense development. She plans for a couple of days to recover, and she hasn't been.
That's brilliant.
Because she knows I'm going to come back with something wild, which I always do, to be fair to her.
Yeah.
The women's a saint, honestly.
So talk us through how you transition from working in corporate with the sort of structures of, you know, I was going to say 9 to 5, but it won't have been that, will it? But, you know, the structures of being in an organisation, having to work in a certain way, and then being able to do exactly what you want.
Oh, what a brilliant question. Well, you kind of can't. I mean, that's really interesting that you say that. So I did a post on this on LinkedIn recently around I think I've got it nailed, but I'm also envious of you. And because I thought it was really important to share that perspective around. So here are the things that are utterly glorious. I'm 2.5 years out of corporate now. And I still don't have an alarm clock, apart from the odd day where I'm traveling. And I wake up every morning, and I cannot explain to you how grateful I am for that. The ability to work to my own rhythms. If I could get into every corporate and let them create that for people, I think it would be a game changer from a health perspective. Yeah. And so, you know, whatever's going on entrepreneurially, whatever's bad or good, I just wake up and I'm like, I didn't have an alarm clock. And that's fabulous. And also, you know, just this ability to kind of work when you want to. I would say it's yes and no. It's very glorious to entirely choose what you spend your time on. And equally, you know, I've got to say, I had a very senior job for certainly the last 6 years of my corporate career. So I miss having a PA. I have a VA now, but that's not the same. I miss having a PA. I really miss being able to walk into a room with a glorious vision and have 12 people there waiting for me to explain to them what it is, and they just go and do it.
It's good you've you know, got that honesty.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
I can have these amazing visions, and I'm like, well, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. So I think that, but the benefit of that is actually we do a lot of what we call ruthless pruning. We spend a lot of time deciding what we're going to spend our time on. And so we're quite ruthless about, does this bring us joy? Do we really love to do this? If not, does it need to be done? Can we outsource it? And don't get me wrong, we're not like flowing with abundant, we haven't got a massive team behind us, but we have people we can outsource to. And so actually the design of our work is very much built around what do we most enjoy doing, which means we're ruthless about who we work with. We say no to some individuals and some corporates where we just go, have a sense that you might be an energy drain for us. And that's really lovely. I expected it to be easier in some ways and tougher in others than it was. One of the things I expected to be gloriously brilliant was I just thought I was going to become some incredible, like, I'll be at the gym every day and I'll drink green smoothies and I'll just be a glowing goddess, you know, and because I've got all this space to do things. And then the thing I thought would be hard would be the losing my corporate identity and you know, losing all those people that I'd been around who I really loved. And lo and behold, I didn't go to the gym every day because I was knackered. I was so tired. I think it took me a year to recover, to be honest. So we were building a business and I was utterly exhausted. So now I do actually, I swim every weekday. But that took a long time to build those rhythms. I definitely had a story. I was just going to wake up on the Monday and, you know, have this lovely health regime that was just rubbish. That did not happen. And I didn't miss my corporate identity. And that was astounding to me, like really astounding, because I went really from one of the biggest people leadership jobs in the country to kind of being nobody. And do you know what changed that for me? I was so clear that I was finally facing my kind of life purpose. And I think then I didn't care anymore. I didn't care that I didn't have that identity. I did miss the regular salary coming. Let's not pretend that you don't miss that one, right? You miss that certainty. So the things I thought would happen didn't, and other things did. I think I'm beyond the point of no return now. I would go so far as to say I suspect I'm unemployable.
I was going to say, joining the ranks of the unemployable.
Exactly, yeah. And I wear that badge with pride now. Yeah, I love the fact that I have permission to say what I want to say, and the only person that has a consequence on is me, or sometimes Nick. It's some transition. Second time around, much easier than first. I think, to be fair, having had a business pretty much go bankrupt, I think I learned many of the very hard lessons first time round. And I remember even when we had that business, we got venture capital for that business, and one of the guys that we met said, "Come back when you've gone bust." He said, I will invest in this. I will invest in this business, but not now. He said, because you're going to make stupid mistakes and I'm not paying for them. And at the time I was like, that's ridiculous. And I look back at it and go, what a genius. Because you know what? We didn't have the energy to do it twice. He was a smart man. And so whilst I would never wish on anybody the experience that we had, and it was a construction business, so it was much more complex than what I do now. I'm so grateful for it, because when we started this business, there were some daft things I already knew not to do. like spend many thousands of pounds on a website. Why does anyone do that?
Yes, exactly. It's interesting, isn't it? I started my business, I don't know, 13 and a half years ago now, and I've done loads of different things. We were laughing before we came on how people will never know what I do, because I've changed what I do, and I also do random things in my business now that I don't tell people about, particularly because they aren't what I really do. If you see what I mean. But there's stuff that I enjoy, but they're not my sort of offering, if you like. And but it is, I feel, I said on, I think, a podcast recently, that I'm actually looking back at the stuff I was teaching around online marketing 10 years ago, and actually reteaching myself what I used to teach other people, because I sort of forgot a lot of it, and I got too sophisticated and bored with how it was and all that sort of stuff. And I'm actually now thinking, cool, nearly 14 years down the line, I'm actually probably doing it, almost right compared to what I've been doing for the last 14 years. And so it does take a while and some learning, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's so easy to get sucked into all the noise. It's so easy, especially for people who are doing coaching, as an example. There's so many people out there telling you how to do it. And, we launched our online program off the back of Jeff Walker's launch model, for example, which was highly, highly successful for us, except it kind of wasn't. So it worked the first time. The second time, it was so much harder. And what we realized was we were a long way away from passive income. It wasn't passive, and there's no such thing as passive, right? But let's call it, income that you do one big shot of work on, and then the rest kind of comes in a bit more gently. And so there is a lot of test and learn, a lot. And in the end, we got very clear that a huge following was going to dilute what we really wanted to create. And so we kind of went for, the whole 1,000 true fans perspective, rather than the let's have this mass following and let's be almost quite generic as a consequence of that. And I think that stood us in really good stead. Good stead.
And so you said it's sort of 2.5 years since you started, and you have just literally the week we're speaking, obviously this will be published in a little while, rebranded. You have changed already. So tell us a bit more about how that came about.
Oh, and that was edgy. Yeah. Well, when we started, our business was initially called Somebody Inside. It was this whole message around there's somebody inside you waiting to come out, and let's draw them out. I guess you evolve and grow. So that was a business targeted at women again. But around this whole point in life where you kind of wake up one day and go, hang on a minute, is this it? Did I mean to create this life? Which I think is quite classic. We call it the midlife transformation, not the crisis. And we really, really loved that work, and it went really well. And I realized that I was diluting my personal message. And that actually deep inside me was this whole, but you're supposed to change the world, Danielle, you're supposed to change the world. And that's what you're women. You need to go and find more people who want to do that, because they're the people who really inspire you. And so last year I signed up to go to an intensive in Los Angeles with Rich Litvin. I don't know if you've come across him. He wrote The Prosperous Coach.
Yeah.
And I had a real sense that he was going to be my person. And so I went to this intensive. It was brilliant. I then ended up signing up for one of his programs, which actually wasn't for me. And I've been coaching with him for the last year. I'm just about to finish. And Rich really encouraged me to speak only to women who were like me. And somebody had met me for dinner. I'd been thinking about this program called Conscious Leadership, which is actually part of what we do in corporates for a while. And I'd met this woman for dinner, and she said to me, I had a message from some so-and-so the other day who I didn't even know who they were. And I said, oh, I'm going to meet Danielle Macleod. Do you know her? And apparently what he said was, you'll love Danielle. She's a remarkable woman. And I don't receive a lot of compliments, but do you know that one? I was like, oh, I like that. Like I really like that. There are loads of words people might use about me, but I really like remarkable. And so I then, as I was starting to build this kind of world of what do I want to create, I built a community on my own. We were really clear that Nick doesn't love the kind of online community work in the same way that I do, because she likes to work powerfully with less people, whereas I quite like reach on a different level. So I said, I'm going to set up this community called Remarkable Women, and it's going to be focused on a life of impact as well as joy. And what was so lovely about it was people were like, when you say to somebody, I run a community called Remarkable Women, you largely can guess what that is. When you say I run a business called Somebody Inside, people look at you with like blank eyes and go, I'm sorry, what does that mean? And I just got really, women I most wanted to work with. We could create transformation for anybody, but the women I most wanted to work with, and the men actually. So the corporate work I do with men and women, it's very similar work. It's just not, it's not focused on the feminine, obviously. Was work with women who would take that transformation and feed what we call the big hunger. We nicked that from a woman called Tara Trent. So the big hunger in them to have meaning and purpose. And it was a natural evolution. What's hard, Joe, is you've been building a following for 2.5 years, and we have a very healthy following. You're kind of like, oh my word, we have to say goodbye to some of them now. And how is that going to go down? How are people going to feel about it? We also went well before we were ready. So we have a one-page website, having had a very comprehensive website, because we were just like, we could spend months farting around with what goes on the new website, and that will hold us up. And so it felt really scary, because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who would say, you know, a lot of ideas that would work, people give up on them too soon. And Somebody Inside was doing really, really well, and so was Remarkable Women. So we call it like our baby's just grown up into a teenager, and this is her new name as a consequence. So it is a rebrand. It's powerful. Even the logo is very similar. You know, you would see the transition, but we're very clear now. Come and do transformational work with us because you want to explore your deepest dreams, and come to us because you have a heart for the world. So I'm not particularly interested in teaching women how to earn more money. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, by the way. But, you know, if someone comes to me and says, I just want to be more in my corporate career, and I dig around and it's like, yeah, but why? Well, I want to have a bigger house and more designer bags. I am like, great, let me introduce you to X or Y, because my personal desire is to play really boldly in the world. And what's been so interesting is as we've started to do that, what has changed as a consequence? I mean, you're probably going to ask me this later on, but one of the things that happened when I was at a 3-day intensive with Rich in London recently. So there were 10 of us. One woman had come from Australia to London. You know, this was a big deal. And I had spent 3 days talking about how I really wanted to play big. And we had to do like speed coaching. So there was 5 of us sat opposite another 5. And this guy from Belgium had said to me the day before, I've got something for you and it might be too edgy for you. And Richard said, oh, we haven't got time now, you know, pick it up with Danielle separately. And I dodged him because I didn't want to hear it. And lo and behold, is he not the last person facing me at the end of this speed coaching? And I just looked at him and I said, what have you got for me? And we had 3 minutes. It was brilliant. And he looked me in the eye and he said, stop talking about playing big, play big. And then he didn't speak for the rest of the 3. And I was like, oh man, genius. So on the next day, So it was the same day. We did this thing in the afternoon where we had to do this thing called Because I Said I Would. And so you had to write a commitment. And Rich was like, play big because you've been with me for 3 days. What do you want to create? You had to write this commitment. And the idea was you would speak it aloud and you would say, because I said I would.
Yeah.
So I'm sat there. I've no idea where this came from. I'd never thought it in my life. And I look up and there's him and this other guy in the room who also was doing incredible stuff. And then I wrote this thing down and Rich said, read your sentence aloud. And I said, I'm going to raise £10 million for 10 ideas that will change the world in the next 10 years because I said I would. And then I had to go and tell my husband and Nick that I'd committed to that. And we're like 3 weeks on from that, 4 weeks maybe. Joe, I can't tell you what's changed as a consequence. It's astounding. We are in some the first thing we think we're going to fund, which I can't even share because we're literally in conversation today. It's so exciting. The community are beyond excited about it, but it's opening up all these new conversations. And so I feel like the rebrand has been, because I know it's going to happen. Like, I have no idea how to raise 10 million quid, but I know we're going to do it. And so the rebrand has almost given me permission to step up. And that's what I needed. So we've called it, it's a bit like Mr. Ben. We've just gone in the shop and put on a new outfit. We're still the same people, but we're just being laser focused with our intention. So it's super exciting.
Yeah. Now, you've reminded me of a story that I read through your newsletter on your blog, I think, about a hashtag that you're using. Because your husband said something similar to you, didn't they, a few weeks ago as well? So what is your story on that?
So I have a hashtag, which is hashtag TMRWIS, and it doesn't come from me. So if anyone's interested, go and look up TBOLITNFL. That's TBOLITNFL. And it's essentially an identity that you create for yourself and live into. So my hashtag stands for TMRWIS, stands for the most remarkable woman in Scotland. And it came from watching one of the world's leading coaches do this work with somebody else. And I'd been doing coaching with loads of my clients around creating new job titles, and real job titles, not hashtags. And several of my clients going, well, what's yours? And I was like, I haven't got one. And the more I sat with it, the more difficulty I had coming up with it. And then I watched this video and I thought, I can do that. I can create a hashtag. And something really incredible happened off the back of it. So I was like, right, it's the most remarkable woman in Scotland. And I have to say, several people say to me, why is it not the most remarkable woman in the world? And I'm like, Michelle Obama. And several other women. I don't really own Scotland, right? But it's a great thing to play with. I literally, incredible thing happened. That day I'd had, or the day before, somebody had written to me who'd asked me to speak at an event, and he'd asked me to speak. He'd asked me to save the date and everything. And then I got an email saying, "Oh, we haven't booked you because we had loads of people, and can you do the June one instead?" And I was a bit miffed. And then I was like, "Oh, well, it was a really difficult date for me to do, so that's fine." And I came up with this hashtag. And then I woke up the next morning, I was really angry, and I was like, he's just rejected the most remarkable woman in Scotland. And so I thought, well, he needs to know that. So I didn't tell him that, but I wrote him this email and I just said, I just want to write to you. I said, because I think you might have forgotten that you invited me to speak at this event. And I said, I just want you to know that you only have, you know as well as I do, that maybe only one or two people at conferences really change the game for everybody in the room. And I said, I really want you to know I'm one of those people. And so I said, I want this to be a success for you. He was launching a new thing. And I said, so I absolutely will come to this event in June as long as I can make the date. Don't pass me by again. And I sent the email and then nearly crapped myself, to be honest. Because I was like, I didn't want to do that. And he wrote back to me and he said, I've never read anything like this in my life. When can we speak? And actually, we're in a really great relationship now, and I'm speaking at several events for him, and we're doing all kinds of things together. But you know, there's something really interesting about, so often now when I get stuck, I say to myself, what would the most remarkable women in Scotland do? And that email wasn't about me being cocky. It was actually about me saying, I really want this to be a success for you. You're mad to turn me down. Because Joe, one of the things I do really well is speak at conferences. It's one of my gifts. And so I just thought I have to let him know that. So when I put on my I have a like a job plaque and everything. When I look up and I see that, I'm like, oh, what would she do? I hate her sometimes because she's really bold. And my husband, now, whenever I'm stuck, he just looks at me and he goes, what would she do, Danielle? And I'm like, don't ask me that question. But loads of my clients have hashtags now, and
Yes.
I put it on everything. And but it took a while for me to fess up what it was, because obviously it just sounds really cocky.
It did. So I remember reading it and you were sort of going, I've been putting this all over social media, but I just haven't told anyone what it means.
Well, why would
you
you,
just-
right? Because it's like, who would say that? But I think when you explain to people, it just enables me to behave differently in a really powerful way.
Yeah.
So like the most remarkable woman in Scotland doesn't think raising 10 million quid's enough, right? In fact, even as I wrote it, she was like, should you not make that 100 million? I was like, we'll start with 10. Because like the most I've ever raised in a oneer is like 120k, right? So to suddenly say 10 million, but that's why we've given ourselves 10 years. So yeah, I love the most remarkable woman in Scotland. She also bugs me a little bit sometimes.
Yes, I can imagine. So you briefly mentioned morning routines and things when you were talking about your relationship with Nick. Tell us a bit more about that, and maybe even some contrast, because you both do things, but maybe as she's the meditation monk and you're not, there'll be some differences.
Yeah, because I pretend to meditate, whereas she actually does. And I do think one of the core differences probably is that my like absolute non-negotiable with morning routine is my journal. And she's only recently started to adopt that, because for me, it's a way to get out of my mind what needs processing. And so I started with the Artist Way years ago. I've been journaling for 3 years now. And more recently, I answer 4 questions every morning. So what's awesome about today, because I want to start my day with excitement. Then I write my big creative goal. So that's my big mission. I write the same thing every single day about what am I going to create in the next 25 years. And then I write a bit of thoughts around what comes up for me, which sometimes is, that's never going to happen, is it? And then I write about what's getting in the way, which is always the same thing: time, tiredness, or my mind. You know, like you just can't, anxiety. And then I write about how am I going to be today. So I sort of start and finish with today, and then I step into what am I creating. I found that's a really powerful way to have my subconscious on gear. And so my subconscious now knows that we're out in the world creating a movement of remarkable women. We're unleashing 50,000 heart-centered leaders into the world, and we're raising 10 million pounds in the next 10 years. And I write about that every single day. And I would never swap that, Joe. I mean, I can't imagine not doing it. Even if some days I only write a page rather than 2 or 3, that's really fundamental. Whereas Nick started to do that, but of course her absolute non-negotiable would be her meditation. I had back surgery 3 years ago and back trouble for 12 years before that. Took all of that like to totally break, to realize maybe I should listen to my physio when she says do Pilates. And so I'm finally doing Pilates every day, and my permission with that is as long as I do a stretch of some sort, it counts, but my ideal is to do 15 minutes. I swim every weekday morning, 25 lengths at least, and I have a jacuzzi straight after, which is important. So that's my reward. And I will start my day with, as well as my breakfast, a shot of apple and ginger, because I think ginger is the medicine from God. And since I've sort of incorporated fresh ginger into my life, I have to say, I'm like, I don't want to say this in case it doesn't become true, but I'm pretty invincible. I don't catch things. Like I don't get colds, or I get other things like back surgery, but in terms of like viruses that are flying around, I don't get them. So that's kind of that's my rhythm now. But for your listeners, if no one's got their hands on it yet, the book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I don't know if you've read it yet. This guy has just nailed the whole business of creating habits. And what he says is just get one right, and he says many things, but get one right and then introduce another one and start slowly and build. And I realized that actually over the last 2.5 years, of course I didn't just wake up and become this kind of new habit person. But when I look back on what I've created now versus where I was, it's quite incredible.
Yeah.
So
I love the thing you said about the permission. Sorry, just where you said about the stretching. I think that's a real key thing as well. That it's like I used to try and do like 10,000 steps a day because that's what everyone says you should. And then I thought, well, actually, I just can't do that for whatever reason every day. So I sort of thought, well, less is good as long as I do something. And then some days I can't even really leave the house because there's stuff to do. But I'm happy in the fact that I have a 3-story house that, I'm up and down the stairs all the time, and I have a standing desk, and I'm moving. And that's actually probably my fallback position, which is keep moving, keep standing, and that is good enough on those days where you just can't do the extra stuff.
Well, I have this real thing, Joe, about I want to live a long life. Like, it was really funny. Our financial advisor came to see us recently, and he said to me and John, so we financially plan for you to live till you're 80. And me and John looked at him in horror. And I said, well, you don't want to do that. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm going for 100, maybe 120. And John laughed and he went, I don't think that long for me. So, but like 95. I mean, his family lived to that long anyway. And I'm dead serious about that. But I want to live for a long time and have a body that can do that with me. Yeah. And so, don't get me wrong, you're not going to meet me and go, oh my word, she's clearly an athlete, because I'm absolutely not. But I do want to have a body that is flexible. And one of the things you learn after you've had spinal surgery is, I can ache when I wake up in the morning. I'm thinking, blimey, what if 70-year-old me can't get out of bed, right? Yeah. And so just committing to those cat stretches in the morning and more if there's time. I don't give myself permission to take that out anymore. But what James Clear says in his book, which I think is really powerful, is he says, don't miss 2 days in a row, unless you get flu or something like that. Yeah. So what he says is everybody will miss one. Everybody will miss one day, and that's fine. These things happen. He said, but as soon as you give yourself permission to miss 2, you're rewiring the brain back to what it knows more traditionally, which is not doing this. And so I really love that. Like, I can let myself off one day, and if I was proper poorly, obviously I wouldn't be up doing cat stretches, but I don't let myself off too.
Oh, that's really interesting. So we haven't talked about your book. I think we should. It's in my bedside drawer, and I'm about 2/3 of the way
Never
through.
To come out.
I dip in and out. I tend not to read business books when it's time to go to sleep, because that tends to.
I hope you're not describing my book as a business book.
Yeah, well, I know exactly. No, but as in, I like fiction because it's something that I say is going to be enjoyable. You said this is leading up to a compliment. So my business reading tends to be, during the day, and so the idea of having a book that is not fiction, so I'm not saying it's business, but not fiction, sat next to my bed, that I would potentially read before I go to sleep is unusual. But yours, well, and also I know you obviously, but yours is just you speaking. It's just I love the way that you've captured yourself in your book.
Thank you. It's so funny because I'm not sure I know how to write any other way, although, and so it's such consistent feedback that people are like, oh my word, it's like having a conversation with you. And the amount of people that I don't know who've written to me since we published Remarkably Easy and who say, I just feel like I know you, and are you in my head? And I'm so chuffed about that, because it's such a big thing for the imposter in us to publish a book. It certainly was a really big deal for me. You're like just waiting for someone to tell you it's rubbish, and to affirm your own belief that it is. And I thought, I've always had this story that my writing almost isn't academic enough, and of course, the book's called Remarkably Easy, so it should be easy. But I didn't want it to be easy as in not fun, And so I wanted people to have this real sense of, I can see you and what you're up to, right? And because I do it too. And so that's kind of the style of the book, really. Like, we're all doing this and pretending we're not, aren't we? And it's been so lovely to have people come back and say, actually, do you know, that's why we love it. And I had some great feedback from my old mentor, who's the COO of the business I used to work for. And he said, can you make this book so I could read it on a plane? And he said, I don't like long business books, Danielle. And obviously the book's not targeted at men, although lots of men have read it, interestingly. But I I don't know, something about that must have landed, because it's written for you to be able to really easily just read a short chapter, seemingly take quite a lot from it, answer the questions, and then just put it down and be like, oh, you could probably work with that question for a week if you wanted to, or you could just go straight to the next one. What's interesting, Joe, I guess, is now I'm in the middle of the second book. I stupidly started reading Stephen King's On Writing, and while I was writing the first book, it's a brilliant book, so it's not stupid because it's a rubbish book, it's a great book. But for the wily amongst you who get the book, and I challenge you to spot this now, there's 2 pages in the book which were edited after I read it. So it was done in the 8th edit. And my husband's the only person who spotted it, and he went, there's 2 pages in that book that are like, they're a bit different. And I went, I know, I meant to go back and change them and I didn't do it. And my editor, where I've sort of gone a bit less chatty, basically, a bit more like a regular book. And the new book I realise is a bit more in that style, and I'm going to have to go back and edit it back to the chatty style, because I think that's what people enjoy so much about the first one.
Yeah. So what's your pitch for the first one? So why should people read it, or not should? We don't like shoulds. Why will people enjoy reading it, and why will they find it useful?
Well, firstly, you'll have a good laugh at yourself, I think, around just all this stuff about, I'm going to be a green smoothie drinking yoga goddess, and like, I've started this thing 900 times, but I think the 901th time is going to work, and so I think you should read it just to lighten up on yourself a little bit, and then I think you should read it for some really easy small steps that you can take that in combination will change the game. Here's the thing I know, Joe, beyond anything else now, you can set a really, really massive goal for yourself, but it always starts with the tiniest step. And I mean really tiny. It's like I had a big conversation with somebody today who said, I just don't know how to rest in a nourishing way. And I said, well, that's what we've got to work out. I said, but you do know how to go to bed 5 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And she just looked at me and smiled, and I went, just start there, Yeah. And I think the book is full of all those small things that are really powerful, but it also acknowledges that we just tell ourselves a load of rubbish sometimes, and we need to stop. And it gives you ways to do that. Sometimes it's the bizarrest thing. I've had this experience many times in my writing. I read it because obviously I'm doing lots of webinars and talking at corporate events and, just sharing it with the world. And every time I forget what's in it, and then I read it and I'm like, did I write this? I forgot. This is really good, this bit.
I've been listening back to my podcast thinking the same thing. It's funny, isn't it?
Maybe I should take my own advice here. So, I think the consistent feedback, a lot of people have said, I don't read these kind of books, but I'm so glad I read this one. And wow, I mean, that's such a massive compliment for you to be saying it's by your bedside. Read it because it's fun, it's light, it's insight into you that but it's going to wake you up a little bit. And if you only did 2 or 3 of the things that are in there, but you really found a new way to do them because of the way they're explained, then you want to watch,
Yeah, lovely, thank you. So I've got 2 questions I ask everybody. First one is, what about on those days where it all goes horribly wrong? How do you deal with those?
Oh, do you know something? We really teach this thing about like literally that, Joe, that you wake up and a few things go belly up, right? And then you go, I'm having a bad day. And I don't believe in bad days. I believe in bad moments. So I totally believe that something happens that knocks you off kilter. I think it is a choice to continue and go, well, now I'm writing off the whole day.
Yes.
And I also think the choice to write off the whole day means you can take a 4 out of 10 day and make it a 1 out of 10 day, because you're in that downward spiral. And so my job when I wake up and I'm having a 4 out of 10 day is to not panic about it and to be with it, and to just go, well, it's a 4 out of 10 day today, that's fine, and because the mind is like a bit freaked out by that. It's like, no, we turn 4 out of 10 days into 1 out of 10 days, and it's like, don't know, we can just
get
do
with the
four.
program.
Yeah. And so I want to be really clear, because I think people meet me and they think I've got it nailed. That is so not the case. I mean, I've had 2 eating disorders in my life. We're not talking about somebody who doesn't have a mind that drives her wild. And also the other thing that I do is I'm really honest with my husband. I give this tip to everybody, right? You know, you wake up in the morning sometimes and the world is like 5 degrees off, but nothing actually happened. And you're like in a bad mood, but you're like, how am I in a bad mood? I went to bed fine and now I'm in a filthy mood. And your partner, you try and hide it, right? So your partner or your kids or whoever's around you, they like tiptoe around you and they think they've done something to annoy you. And so my husband and I have a deal now that when we wake up and that's how life is for us, one of us will turn to the other and go, do you know what? I've just woken up a bit odd today. And I want you to know you didn't do anything. And I'm not even sure why. And the next question from either of us will always be, do you want to talk about that? And the person will either go yes or no. And we don't rush to fix each other, but it takes a lot of sweat off if you can just go, I think I might be a grumpy woman today. Know that you haven't done anything, and know I'm doing everything I can to not be that. It's quite a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the last question is, what about those days where you've had the chance to live more? So that's where I talk about you getting to do more of the stuff that you want to do and less of the stuff that you feel you should do or you have to do. What does that day look like?
What does it look like? Well, I just totally love what I do. I want to be really clear about that. A couple of months ago, my husband came in and he wanted us to go on holiday. And I was like, what, do you want me to leave all this? I was literally like, I'm doing my writing and I'm coaching people and I love this, you know. So, but it's not always like that. But on the whole, it's there's no finance in that day ever. And it's like, what am I doing? I've coached somebody who has deeply inspired me. I had 2 sessions yesterday that were just beyond exciting. I've done something that I didn't think could happen or I could do. So, for example, I met somebody last week to ask him for help on something, and within a day he had introduced me to somebody everybody would know, a household name, around, I think you two can help each other. And it's like, how does that happen, you know? And so I don't know, Joe, they're the days where there's like magic in the air. And they're the days that fire you up on the bad days. You're like, yeah, but last week I did this, you know? So I'm reading a great book, as in on that day. I'm doing a little bit of, I've written a little piece that's just made me smile. And I've had a conversation with somebody, like yesterday, I had a coaching conversation with somebody, a man actually, and something came to me and I said, I just said this, it's this, isn't it? And he just like exhaled. And there were tears in his eyes, and he just went, thank you. And I just looked at him and I went, are we done now? And he said, yeah. And that's just beyond exciting, you know? It's beyond exciting. Also, when we do our retreats, similar. So, I don't know. It's not me that does it. This sounds bonkers, a bit woo-woo, and I'm not very woo-woo. It's like you just got to put your ego to one side and listen deeply. And then in my experience, something comes out of my mouth. I'm like, well, where did that even come from? A bit like the book where you're like, did I do that? And it's like, I don't know, magic. Now I just sound like a crazy person, but that is my experience.
But crazy in all the right ways, I think. It's been brilliant interviewing you, Danielle, as I knew it would be. I was so pleased that you were able to spend the time with me. Tell people how they can get to contact you and find out more about you.
Yeah, super easy on our one-page website. So you can find me on remarkablewomen.co.uk. We're having a little negotiation with the world about .com right now. And on LinkedIn, Danielle Macleod, Macleod, and also I'd say on Facebook, but you're probably going to have to look for somebody inside, so ignore that for now. Well, you can just write to me, Danielle at remarkablewomen.co.uk. I genuinely, I reply to everybody who writes, and I particularly love it when people randomly write and say, I've read your book and you don't know who I am. And I'm like, oh, you've made my day. So I love people.
Brilliant.
And it's just been so good to talk to you, Joe. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, and thank you again. So it's just been great. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks.
All this information is available in the show notes on the website. If you go to powertolivemore.com/ in this case 105, then you can find those there. And the tool that I shared on the newsletter last week isn't actually a tool as such, it's a cleaning product. As I said in the newsletter, it's one of my more random recommendations. So it's what I would call an amazing cleaning product that I saw and bought off Facebook. I'm not really into cleaning, but it caught my eye because it's eco-friendly, unscented, and you can use it for everything, including greasy ovens and lime-scaled up showers, as well as the usual surfaces and windows and that sort of thing. I love that you can use it for everything, and you use it straight out of the bottle as well, so you don't have to dilute it or whatever, and it cleans really well. And I think one of the things that impresses me is when you're cleaning, sometimes it's a bit dusty. It just takes the dust away. You don't even really have to dust beforehand before you then start to clean. Obviously, if you've got lots of dust, you probably need to do that. But if you just use it straight out of the bottle, it almost like grabs all of the stuff rather than it sort of flying around like it quite often does otherwise. I introduced it to my cleaner, who told me that she had an oven that was so greasy she was considering replacing it as she thought it was uncleanable. And I then gave her some to take home, and the diamond sponge that comes with it, which is for the lime-scaled showers and also for the greasy ovens. And she sent me a picture later in the day, which was basically a sort of before and after shot like you see on telly and adverts and so on. And it'd taken her 5 minutes literally to absolutely clean her oven, and she was just so impressed. Apparently all her family are using it now. And I found myself a couple of weeks ago in a car with my friends from choir just before we went into our concert, actually showing them a video from the Co website. So it's very sad. But anyway, I'm sharing it with you. I would really recommend it. And you can check them out by going to joedodds.com/recommends/co, which is KOH. And again, the show notes for this week's show are at powertolivemore.com/105. And we look forward to speaking to you next week.
Use your power to live more.